Tonight, we are very fortunate to welcome Irene Rosenfeld, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Kraft Foods. With an annual revenues of $48 billion, Kraft is the world's second largest food company with a portfolio that includes a cadre of beloved, iconic brands like Oreo, Nabisco, Trident Gum, Maxwell House Coffee, Philadelphia Cream Cheese, Oscar Mayer Meats, and of course, its famous cheese. With their products present in more than 99% of US households, roughly 80% of these heritage brands hold either number 1 or number 2 positions in their respective categories. When pressed to choose her favorite, Irene points to the company's namesake, macaroni and cheese, but is quick to also mention Oreos. Although brands like Wheat Thins, Miracle Whip, A1 steak sauce are the epitome of Americana, Kraft serves an equally enthusiastic international market. With consumers in approximately 170 countries, more than half of Kraft's revenue come from markets outside of North America, such as Brazil, China, India, and Mexico. And now, with the February acquisition of Cadbury, Kraft is truly a global snacks and confectionery powerhouse, a far cry from the company's humble beginnings right here in Chicago, where James L. Kraft first sold cheese from a horse-drawn carriage in 1913. Like the company she presides over, Irene was always destined for greatness. Born in Brooklyn and raised on Long Island, she says she has been multitasking since she was 4. She brought an unparalleled intensity to nap time in preschool. And on the playground, most of her companions were boys. It would seem that much hasn't changed, except today the playground is corporate America, and I suspect there are less naps. Irene has spent nearly 3 decades in the food industry. She began her career focused on consumer research at Saatchi & Saatchi. She joined General Foods in 1981 before it became a part of Kraft. Then in 2001, Irene helped spearhead Kraft's IPO. During a brief 2-year hiatus, Irene was chairman and CEO of Frito-Lay. She rejoined Kraft as chief executive officer in 2006 and assumed the additional role of chairman following the company's 2007 spin-off from Altria. Kraft split from Altria, formerly Philip Morris, called for massive corporate restructuring. In stating the rallying cry, "Make today delicious," she galvanized her team by urging employees to act like owners while adhering to a keep it simple mantra that would allow the billion-dollar behemoth to act as nimble as a startup. After earning an undergraduate degree in psychology, she went on to get an MBA and a PhD in marketing and statistics, all from Cornell University. Some say it is this unique merging of business sense and psychology that has been the key to her success. This is not to say that she hasn't faced her share of conflicts and challenges. Kraft purchased Cadbury for $16.7 billion earlier this year. As can be expected with any transaction of this size, the Cadbury takeover was not without turmoil. The iconic British chocolate company would not go gently into that good night. Many feared job cuts and that the brand would become Americanized. As you also may know, Kraft's largest shareholder is Berkshire Hathaway, and Warren Buffett opposed the acquisition. Yet, Irene stood firm, convinced the combination of Kraft and Cadbury would provide the scale necessary to grow sales and distribution in new and exciting markets. It is worth noting that Mr. Buffett, the consummate value investor, is frequently wary of acquisitions. When a company makes an acquisition, he says he buys 2 cards, one congratulatory and the other a sympathy card. Irene has said she is confident that she will receive a congratulatory card in the not-too-distant future. Beyond Kraft, Irene serves on the board of Cornell, as well as the Grocery Manufacturers Association. In 2008, she placed 6th on the Wall Street Journal's 50 Women to Watch list, and the most recent Forbes magazine ranked her as the second most powerful woman in the entire world. An outdoor enthusiast, athlete, and piano player, she is a mother of 2 adult daughters who, with her first husband, Philip Rosenfeld, who passed away, and is now married to Richard Ilgen. Irene, I hope you get that congratulatory card from Warren soon. And when you do, may I suggest you enjoy reading it over a few Oreos and a tall glass of milk. Please join me in welcoming the woman who has probably had a hand in feeding all of us today, Irene Rosenfeld.
Thank you, John, for that such a very kind introduction. I'm often asked, how can the second most powerful woman in the world be this short? But it works. I'm so honored to be here tonight. I'm especially pleased to have the opportunity to talk to the Chicago business community about a topic that is very much on our minds as the second largest food company in the world. And I hope it will be top of mind for all of you by the time I'm done tonight. The subject is the nutritional well-being of the people on our planet. Today, we face a paradoxical challenge. For the first time in history, we're battling epidemics around the world related to both obesity and hunger, feast and famine at the very same time. Given Kraft Foods' broad portfolio and extensive global footprint, I think it's clear why we are deeply engaged in both of these issues. We sell products in over 170 countries. In fact, almost 60% of our revenue comes from outside the US. Our products range from indulgences like chocolate to healthy snacks like whole grain crackers and cheese, to those that offer essential vitamins and minerals like fortified biscuits and powdered beverages. What might be less clear is how we're going about it to ensure we make a lasting, positive change in the lives of the millions of people that are affected by these 2 epidemics. Our approach is to address both the immediate needs and the root causes of obesity and hunger by organizing our efforts around 3 Ps: products, partnerships, and policies. So within that framework, let me share some of the things that Kraft Foods is doing to fight feast and famine, and conclude by suggesting some ways that you and your companies can help. Let's start with feast. All you have to do is walk around today at any public place, an airport, a movie theater, a shopping mall, to see that we have an obesity epidemic in this country. Nearly 1 out of every 3 adults is obese, and sadly, nearly 1 in 5 American children. Obesity is the second leading cause of preventable disease and death in the United States, surpassed only by smoking. What's less well known, though, is that obesity is not just an American problem. It's a global issue. According to the World Health Organization, more than 1 billion people are overweight, almost 1 out of every 6 people on Earth. Childhood obesity is also on the rise. In fact, by the end of this year, it's estimated that 43 million children under 5 will be overweight. And although you might think that this is just an issue in developed markets where food is more plentiful, it's actually a problem in developing markets as well. Take India, for example. It's well known that the country has a hunger problem. In fact, about 220 million Indians are undernourished. But at the same time, about 155 million Indians are obese. That's more than the populations of Germany and the UK combined. And unfortunately, that number is growing. So obesity is truly a global problem. But it's also a very complex issue with many causes, including sedentary lifestyles, lack of access to affordable fresh foods, not enough safe places for children to play, and in many cases, poor understanding about the simple concept of energy balance, calories in and calories out. But regardless of the causes, the social costs of obesity are significant and growing. So what can we do to reverse this alarming trend? Unfortunately, despite those enticing ads for miracle weight loss products that you see in People magazine, you know, those ads with the spray-tanned, Speedo-clad models with those 12-pack abs. I'm sure many of you have actually ordered Hydroxycut to try it out yourselves. But unfortunately, there is no silver bullet, no quick fix for losing weight. It comes down to simple math. You have to burn more calories than you take in. Eat less and exercise more. One of the biggest challenges we've seen is that while almost all consumers say they want to eat healthier, it's difficult for them to translate that intent into action. I watched John push aside his fish tonight. The fact is, most people are unwilling to compromise on taste. They simply won't eat foods they don't like in order to be healthy, and they find it especially difficult to give up their favorite foods. And as anyone who has ever tried to lose weight knows, a diet that denies you all of your favorite foods just makes you crave them even more. So our health and wellness product strategy is grounded in two principles. First, we're helping people to eat healthier, not with radical behavior change, but by making small changes, changes that add up over time. According to Dr. Jim Hill, chair of the first World Health Organization consultation on obesity, our goal should be to help people make one or two smarter food choices that will reduce their energy intake by 50 to 100 calories daily. Dr. Hill, who has published extensively on diet and physical activity, suggests that these small changes, along with exercise, can stop gradual weight gain. And stopping weight gain is the first step in reversing the obesity epidemic. So encouraging consumers to make small changes is principle number one. Our second principle is to ensure that the healthier products we develop still taste delicious. Since 2005, we've reformulated or launched more than 5,000 products globally to make it easier for people to make smarter food choices. These include products with fewer calories, like our 100-calorie packs, or Capri Sun beverages, where a recent reformulation eliminated over 100 billion calories annually. Or Jell-O Mousse Temptations, a delicious new product with only 60 calories. In fact, our sugar-free Jell-O products are now selling faster than our sugared versions. These also include products with more whole grain, including the first whole grain biscuit in China. And products with lower sodium. We've committed to reduce sodium in our North American products by an average of 10% by 2012. We've also taken steps like adding fruit to some of our Lunchables products, many of which now include whole grain buns, lean meats, reduced fat cheeses, fat-free mayo, and sugar-free Jell-O. We made these products better for you, but they still taste delicious. That's a real testament to the strength of our R&D capabilities and to our talent. Worldwide, about 30% of our products are now better choices, and over time, we expect that percentage to grow as more people sample and migrate to these products. But I want to be clear, we believe that our greatest strength lies in our range of offerings, in our ability to provide choices to our consumers. Indeed, there's room in a healthy diet for all of our products. And so our goal is to provide a wide range of offerings to enable people to make healthier, more balanced choices to meet their unique nutritional needs. Beyond what we're doing in product development, we're also partnering with others to educate people about healthy eating and the importance of physical activity. Over the past 25 years, we've supported programs in nearly 50 countries, like Health for Schools in the UK. This is an award-winning program designed to engage students in the elements of a healthy lifestyle by promoting gardening, cooking, and active play. Since 2004, we've launched the program in 100 schools in Gloucestershire, England, reaching about 25,000 pupils and inspiring the adults in their lives as well. Just recently, we announced that we'll be making a similar investment over the next 3 years in Birmingham, home of Cadbury's historic Bournville factory. Another example is Salsa Sabor y Salud. Since 2002, we've partnered with the National Latino Children's Institute to support this free bilingual program targeting childhood obesity in the US Latino community. This program engages the whole family in making healthier food choices and increasing their physical activity. This year, we've expanded our partnership working with the YMCA to reach thousands more children and their families. But education alone is not enough. Teaching kids about the importance of exercise doesn't do much if they don't have a safe place to play. So just recently, during our Delicious Difference Week, our global week of service, we announced a national partnership with Kaboom, the community-based playground building organization. I, along with thousands of our employees, volunteered to build playgrounds at locations across America, 3 of them here in Chicago. Working under bright blue skies with volunteers from each neighborhood, our teams transformed 3 vacant lots at Michigan Avenue and 58th Street, at 37th and Ashland, and Hamlet Park in North Chicago into safe, fabulous playgrounds in about 6 hours. I can't tell you how good it felt to think about the kids who walked by those empty lots in the morning and returned in the afternoon to find them filled with beautiful, colorful playgrounds. It was an incredible feeling. And finally, we're engaged around the world to affect policies that help educate consumers about nutrition. We were one of the first companies to put full nutrition information on our labels, even when it was not required by law. We've been a leader in marketing responsibly to children as part of our global commitment to the World Health Organization. In 2005, we were the first company to take the bold step of setting nutrition criteria for the products we advertise to children. We don't market to children under 6. We only market to children 6 to 11 those products that meet specific nutritional guidelines. And we eliminated all in-school marketing. We're very proud that so many others in the industry have now followed our lead. But again, having the right information is not enough. Food labeling and responsible marketing won't make any difference if you don't have a grocery store in your neighborhood. So we're working with the Food Trust, a nonprofit organization whose goal is ensuring that everyone has access to affordable, nutritious foods by bringing grocery stores to what's referred to as food deserts. This effort has helped secure $10 million from the Illinois State Capitol bill earlier this year to encourage retailers to build grocery stores in underserved communities. Next, we'll be partnering with the Food Trust in Atlanta, Boston, Minneapolis, and Houston to help eradicate food deserts in those cities as well. In sum, by developing better-for-you products, partnering with other concerned organizations, and advocating for policies that provide consumers with more information and better food choices, we're doing our part to help slow and ultimately reverse the alarming growth in obesity. But that's only half the battle. So now let's turn to the other side of the feast and famine coin, the global hunger epidemic. The latest UN estimate is that nearly 1 billion people worldwide are undernourished today. About half of them live in Asia, and another quarter live in sub-Saharan Africa. In developing countries, malnutrition affects 1 of every 3 children. And here in this country, the most affluent nation in the world, 1 out of 6 Americans goes to bed hungry. The statistics about children are particularly troubling because scientific evidence has shown that beyond the age of 3, the effects of chronic malnutrition are irreversible. Like obesity, hunger is a complex issue with many contributing factors. Poverty, natural disasters, climate change, political unrest, insufficient investment in agriculture, and ineffective public policy all play a role. And like obesity, the societal costs of hunger are devastating. To help solve the hunger challenge, we also start with our products. This is a very exciting opportunity for us and an area where our knowledge and technology can make a real difference in improving people's lives. I'm pleased to say that in our developing markets, about 10% of our revenue comes from products we call affordable nutrition. These products are ideal for these markets. They're fortified with nutrients that are most lacking in people's diets. They're affordable to consumers with limited incomes. They have long shelf lives. They're easy to ship and easy to carry home. These products include fortified biscuits like Biscuit in Indonesia and Jagai in China. Fortified cheeses like Eden sold in the Philippines. And fortified beverages like Tang in Brazil. These products have small price tags, but they are big businesses for us. For example, Tang alone, this may surprise you, Tang alone is an $800 million business growing at 30% a year. 95% of it is outside the US. As with our efforts to combat obesity, we can make an even bigger difference in the fight against hunger when we partner with others. As you know, poverty is a key underlying cause of hunger in many developing markets. Of all the people in the world who don't get enough food, 70% work in agriculture. So we're leading the way in improving the livelihoods of more than 1 million farmers through partnerships that support sustainable agriculture. For example, we're the largest buyer of coffee and cocoa from Rainforest Alliance certified farms. These farms support biodiversity, reduce pollution and soil erosion, and ensure decent wages, housing, and education for farm workers. We use their crops to make products like Kenko coffee or Côte d'Or chocolate. We're also empowering farmer organizations directly through a $70 million investment in the Cadbury Cocoa Partnership. This unique partnership helps farmers achieve fair trade certification so that they can then receive a guaranteed minimum price for their products. In just 2 years, we've obtained fair trade certification in many Commonwealth countries for Cadbury Dairy Milk, making it the #1 fair trade chocolate bar in the world. All told, we sell more than 15 coffee and cocoa brands that are either fair trade or Rainforest Alliance certified. Beyond coffee and cocoa, we're also working in other commodities. We are one of the world's largest purchasers of cashews. And so in West Africa, which supplies about 1/3 of the world's cashews, we've partnered with organizations like the Gates Foundation Together, we're investing almost $100 million over 5 years to advance sustainable production of cashews and other cash crops, while boosting the incomes of African farmers. Another exciting partnership is called Project Laserbeam, a 5-year, multi-million-dollar partnership with the World Food Program. The goal of this project is to end child malnutrition in developing markets by taking a holistic approach that encompasses food, hygiene, and behavior change. We're currently testing it in Bangladesh and Indonesia, and we hope to expand it to other countries as we learn more. Closer to home, we are proud partners with Feeding America, our nation's leading hunger relief organization, who is well represented here tonight. We've been one of their major supporters for decades. Our latest effort will fund a fleet of 25 mobile food pantries by the end of 2011. Each truck delivers about 1 million pounds of food a year, including produce. That's a lot of good food going to those who are most in need. Beyond NGOs, we sometimes even partner with our consumers. After all, this critical health issue doesn't always get the attention that it deserves. And so a company whose products are in almost 99% of US households can make some real noise. For example, we're asking US consumers to help us give away 20 million meals in our first ever Huddle for Hunger program, which will run throughout the football season. It's our largest branded initiative ever to fight hunger in this country. Our partner is Feeding America, and we're actually tracking the number of meals donated by each state online. Now, here's where I need you to get your competitive juices flowing. The last time I checked, Illinois was in 4th place. So I hope that you'll help us catch up. When you leave here tonight, I need you to log on to huddletofighthunger.com and we'll donate a meal. I know that Vicky Ascara, the CEO of Feeding America, and Dave Brearden, our EVP of Operations, who serves on Feeding America's board, would be especially grateful. When it comes to fighting hunger, we're also fortunate to be able to tap into the intellectual capital and passion of some of the best partners anywhere in the world, our employees. Many of them volunteer at food banks and pantries, packing food and distributing meals. Just last week in Dubai, Kraft Foods employees set a Guinness World Record by creating the world's longest line of sandwiches, 10,000 of them end to end, which they then packed into 5,000 food packages and distributed to the hungry. That's what I call making a really big difference. And finally, we're actively engaged around the world in advocating for policies that can help combat hunger and malnutrition. For example, we're working with the Global Food Banking Network to help countries establish policies that encourage businesses to donate food before it goes bad. And we're part of a broad-based coalition that's supporting the Roadmap to End Hunger, which advocates increasing international food aid and converting food aid donations from commodities to cash. Here in the US, one of the biggest opportunities to end hunger is to increase participation in school breakfast and lunch programs, which are vastly underutilized. So for years, we've supported efforts to incent schools to use these programs. And since many of the mechanisms to end hunger are controlled at the state level, we're part of the Illinois Commission to End Hunger in our state. Solving world hunger feels like a very daunting challenge, and it is. But we believe it's doable. By using our technology to create delicious fortified products, engaging with partners who share our commitment, and advocating for policies to create lasting change, we believe we are truly making a difference in the lives of hungry people around the world. Tonight, I've given you just a snapshot of how Kraft Foods is addressing the dual challenges of feast and famine, arguably two of the most important public health issues of our time. You can learn more in our responsibility report, which was on your chair as you arrived this evening. And on your way out, please help yourselves to samples of some of the delicious products I referenced. Eat them sparingly. But I also hope I've convinced you that these seemingly impossible tasks really aren't so impossible at all. Together, we can solve the paradox of feast and famine, starting right here in our own backyard. So please join us by contributing to organizations that fight hunger and encourage healthy lifestyles, like the Greater Chicago Food Depository and Feeding America. Advocate for active play and nutrition education at home and in school. Remember to visit huddletofighthunger.com so we can donate a meal. And tap into the enormous energy of your organizations by encouraging employees to volunteer in their communities. As we say at Kraft, together we really can make a delicious difference in our communities, in our state, in our country, and in our world. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Irene, for those inspiring remarks this evening. As is our custom, we've prepared a few questions for you. Now, I think the first thing that we're all thinking about here is that you have just taken on this extraordinarily large acquisition, and it seems like you are passionate about these issues around feast and famine all throughout the world. So how do you spend your time? How do you get all around the world? How do you get it all accomplished on behalf of your shareholders?
First of all, let me say that one of the things that's most exciting to us as we bring the Legacy Kraft and Legacy Cadbury organizations together is that there are so many common aspects of our culture, and a commitment to societal responsibility is definitely one of them. And so we are finding that that's actually been a terrific catalyzing opportunity for us to bring employees together around the world. The fact that we have chosen to renew our partnership with Fair Trade, the fact that we are so actively engaged in Rainforest Alliance, happen to be programs that are good business, good for our business, and good for society as well. And so I think the simple answer to your question, John, is we find that the best way to get engaged, to remain engaged in social responsibility programs is to ensure that we are doing well while we're doing good. And it is critical to us to make sure that these programs are founded in sound business opportunities and sound business logic. And that's part of what allows us to get the energy around them and allows them to be sustainable.
You talked a little bit earlier about how competitors are, some of them are following your lead. Can you just talk a little more fully about what percentage of your competitors are coming along and being concerned about these core issues? Because of course, if they don't, then it becomes you could find yourself at a competitive disadvantage.
The good news is, slowly but surely, this issue is undeniable, and I think the good news is that the levels of awareness are increasing. The opportunity to be able to talk to groups like this and the opportunity to read about these issues every day is helping to create a groundswell of support for some of the initiatives that might have been a little bit more difficult a couple of years ago. I mentioned that we were at the forefront of marketing responsibly to children. We changed our policies in 2005, and we found ourselves, as you suggest, very much in a prisoner's dilemma because there was no one behind us. And slowly but surely, again, as other companies recognized that this was not only a social responsibility, but it was also good business, we have been able to marshal the support that we need through the Grocery Manufacturers Association and other industry groups. As I mentioned, we are very actively engaged with a number of our peer companies through the World Health Organization. And so the good news is that is the only way, by working collaboratively across the industry, that is the only way we will ever be able to really put a dent in these serious issues.
And the last question on this area, how important has it been that Michelle Obama has been so outspoken around these issues, especially around obesity, and how have you been able to work collaboratively with this administration?
We are delighted by the First Lady's focus in this area. Her Let's Move program is one that we are actively engaged in, and it really reflects our belief that this is truly about calories in and calories out. And so we are looking forward, given the stature that the First Lady has and her prominence and her ability to really galvanize people's attention, we think that's going to be a terrific asset as we continue to try to make a dent in these issues.
You talked a little bit about the Cadbury acquisition, and it's such a huge undertaking, and it's so difficult in this environment to be able to take on a company that large with all the issues around the world that you have to be facing and all the different pressures you're facing. Can you talk a little bit about some of the different challenges you've faced and how you've been able to overcome those challenges?
You know, I've had quite a few conversations with Warren, as you might imagine, on the subject of acquisitions and synergy and acquisition integration. And I think one of the most important lessons that any of us who have been involved in integrating companies learn is that the best thing you can do is be clear and transparent about the direction and move quickly. And we chose to move very quickly. We made very quick announcements right after we closed in February about what employees could expect within the first 45 days, within the first 90 days, and over the course of the 6-month period. And we have honored those commitments. We are still very much in the throes of the integration. Sanjay Khosla, who runs our developing markets business, is at the epicenter of so much of this. We're doing simultaneous integrations in 70 countries. The good news is we know which ones we have to worry about first, second, third, fourth, fifth, et cetera. And we've got very focused teams on the ground in each of those areas. But I think the key for us has been we did our homework, we understood where we thought the issues were, where the opportunities were, and we moved quickly. And I'm very pleased to tell you that so far so good. We feel very good about how the integration is coming together.
How has this unprecedented global recession impacted your ability to execute this transaction?
Well, I think without a doubt the challenging credit markets probably had the most significant impact on the transaction, but we were quite pleased to be able to execute the transaction, and as a consequence, we think we actually picked a very good window to be able to do it. The good news about the food business is that it is somewhat recession-proof. And we have been definitely have benefited from the fact that so many of the products in our portfolio around the world provides good value to consumers. And so we've certainly attempted to capitalize on that opportunity. We have made significant investments in the equity of our brands, in the quality of our products, and in their marketing support, and in trying to get out the message about the value offering of products like macaroni and cheese or cold cuts or grilled cheese sandwiches in the face of this current economic environment. But it's really forced us to focus much more heavily on the value equation that we offered in every market around the world. It's forced us to look at what out-of-pocket costs are for a number of our offerings. It's forced us to look at whether, in fact, we truly are delivering enough value for the prices we are charging. But I'm happy to tell you that we have had remarkably strong performance even in the face of the current recession.
And then as you go through this period and you know, private labels become so important here in America, how have you been able to deal with the challenges of private label here in America, and how does that unfold internationally?
The private label issue varies from market to market. Obviously, over in Europe, it's in markets like Australia, it is most acute. It's a factor in markets like the U.S. and Canada. And the answer to how do you compete with private label, which I'm asked all the time, is by providing good value, superior value, versus the other offerings. And we are finding increasingly that as a result of the investments that we have made in our franchises, in our quality, in our brand equities, et cetera, that I just mentioned, we are finding that we are competing quite effectively. And in fact, we have seen that there seems to be a fairly stable level at which private label hovers, and you don't see much movement beyond that. And I think we are very pleased to see that in most markets around the world, we've been able to hold our own quite effectively. Despite the challenging economic environment that we face in so many markets, we have been able, as a consequence of the marketing investments that we've made, we have been able to grow our shares, and I'm really very proud of the work that our team has done to be able to accomplish that. So private label is just one more competitor. The good news is that when you have the number one or number two brands in each of these categories, particularly when you are a snacking powerhouse, as we are, which tends to drive traffic to the customer's stores, you are in a very advantaged position if, in fact, you are providing good value, and we've been able to capitalize on that.
As you're protecting these extraordinary brands and building your revenue for the future, how important is the social media and the different ways that people are marketing products in today's society to your ultimate success?
It's very important. I mean, there's no question that the consumer's media consumption habits have changed, and we are changing along with it. One of the most important aspects of making our brands relevant again to consumers, and that's what we've been doing over the last couple of years, is to ensure that we are establishing the appropriate connections. And for so many consumers, social media is the avenue to establish those connections. So we have very strong presence on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google, and we are finding that those are incredibly valuable relationships, much stronger relationships, frankly, than we would have been able to establish with traditional media. In the U.S., we're spending almost 20% of our dollars today in digital media. Worldwide, it's about 10%, simply because the access is not quite there. But I'll just tell you an interesting story. You're all familiar with Philadelphia cream cheese. It's been around for a very long time. We partnered with a woman named Paula Deen, who is a celebrity from the Food Network, for those of you who are Food Network devotees. And what we found is that historically, over the course of a 5-year period, we might have disseminated about 500 Philadelphia cream cheese recipes. We just got about 5,000 recipes in the course of an 8-week period as a consequence of the fact that we've got a network of 300,000 fans on the internet who are actively engaged in sharing recipes and recipe ideas. So social media is a phenomenon. It is here to stay. We are finding it's a very valuable tool in our marketing arsenal, and I think it goes a long way toward helping to contemporize our brands. I think Oreo has 11 million friends on Facebook. It's the largest, most befriended snack brand, and we're very proud of that factoid.
Maybe just to follow up on that, we talked a little bit at dinner about the future of broadcast television and local television, and there's so much fear out there that social media is going to replace television and replace print. How do you view that over the next 5 to 7 years?
The death of television is entirely exaggerated. I think without a doubt it remains the most significant medium available to us to generate awareness, to get a message out, and then some of these other kinds of media become fabulous opportunities to build on that initial level of awareness. So television is clearly a critical part and will remain a critical part of our media mix for the foreseeable future. We are increasingly focused, though, on making sure that we're getting an adequate return by targeting those television dollars. So it's not, we're spending far less in broad-based network programming and a lot more on more targeted programming, but it's still, for us, is at the base. I mentioned that we're spending about 20% of our budget on digital media. We're still spending 70 to 80% of our budget in the U.S. On TV, and a similar, a higher number, in fact, elsewhere in the world.
Maybe switching gears again, there's been an enormous amount of attention, as we all know here in the room, around shareholder activism. And just curious what the implications of this are for you and your board.
I am very proud of the fact that the Kraft board has a terrific governance reputation. We have a very strong board. And I think the reality is that there's no question shareholders are increasingly active, and they are looking for a greater voice in the running of companies. We are anxious to see the evolution of some of the proposals that are under consideration, proxy access, say on pay, for example. But we've also made some important adjustments in our processes and approaches. We now have the ability for shareholders to call a special meeting if 20% of shareholders choose to do that. And we are continuing to look for increasing ways to comply with the spirit of what some of these shareholders are looking for, not always the letter, because I am concerned some of these initiatives may have some unintended consequences. But I would say, as far as Kraft Foods is concerned, I feel very good about the state of our governance profile, and I think the need to ensure that we are being responsive to shareholders' needs and we are focused on delivering shareholder value has been and will remain our major focus, and I think that's the best way to deal with some of the activist pressure.
Have you had much direct pressure from the hedge fund community? We know that we've had speakers here in the past who've talked about some of the havoc that hedge funds can cause at times when they are unhappy with the company or trying to talk up a bear story.
Well, I won't name names, but we've had some very activist folks in our stock, and I expect we do today, and we will continue to see that. Again, I think the focus needs to be on delivering shareholder value for all shareholders. And my biggest concern with some of the proposals that are out there is that you run the risk of being able to divert the focus of the company on short-term needs. And so I'm hopeful that some of the modifications to some of the proposals that are out there will in fact be part of what is eventually adopted. But I think for us, our focus is on increasing value for our shareholders, and I think that is the best way to make sure that we are running the company the way we'd like to.
Recently, as we mentioned earlier, you were announced that you were the second most powerful person in the world. You know, that's an extraordinary accomplishment. So how has it affected you and your children and your husband to have this unique accolade?
Well, my husband went to a meeting the other night, and they introduced him as the second most powerful man in the world. He didn't like that. I have had the privilege over the course of my career of being mentored and having role models that I looked up to and was able to, and have played really significant roles in my career. And to the extent that being on some of these lists can put me in that sort of a position, I am happy and delighted to be able to serve as a role model for others. But I don't run the company for lists. I am focused very, very definitely on delighting our consumers, on making sure our employees love working at Kraft Foods, and on delivering shareholder return. Having said that, I did say to Forbes that if you're going to have a list, I'd like to be on it.
Well, as we were researching this evening, it became kind of interesting. When you look at the Forbes list, Michelle Obama is #1. Again, of course, Irene is #2, and Oprah is #3. So what is it about this magical city that's helped us to develop these extraordinary women leaders?
I'm sure it's in the water, but I would say I'm glad you didn't get to number 7, Lady Gaga. I never thought I'd be on the same list with Lady Gaga, but I'm very proud to be in the company of Michelle Obama and Oprah Winfrey and so many of the others that are on that list.
And then maybe finally, can you talk about sort of what's next for you personally as you develop your career? You've had this extraordinary success. You've been such a role model for so many, and you have these extraordinary initiatives you've talked about this evening. You know, can you just close with what's sort of next for you?
I think I gave you a pretty good sense of what's next for me in my remarks tonight. I actually have been committed. Since I came back to Kraft 4 years ago, I've been committed to doing what I could to get the company on a growth trajectory. We've made terrific progress in that regard, and I am so indebted to my colleagues at the company who have worked tirelessly to accomplish that objective, many of whom are sitting in front of me clapping very loudly here tonight. I think that we have lots of work to do as we not only complete the integration of Kraft and Cadbury, but frankly, that's just the first step. We have identified all sorts of growth opportunities that we think can happen as a result of the combination of the two companies, and I look forward to helping to enable that to happen. But at the same time, as I said earlier, I really believe that the opportunity for companies like ours is to do well by doing good, and I think in some of the areas that I alluded to tonight, the two sides of the malnutrition coin is a terrific area for us to focus on as a company, and for me personally, I have enormous passion for it, and I look forward to doing what I can to continue to make some progress in this area.
Well, thank you so much, Irene. Your passion and focus and vision has been, again, so inspiring for me and for all of us. So I really, really appreciate you being here this evening. I think it's been a terrific evening. The meeting's adjourned.